Um, okay, continue. All right, awesome. So hi everyone, my name's Metinee. I am a Rice alumna from the class of 2019. I was in SID, but towards the end of my time at Rice, I was hanging out mostly at Will Rice, but anyone from SID or Will Rice around, yay. So yeah, there are many terms for the position that I guess hold, but interaction, product, user experience, whatever. But essentially, I design user-centered experiences on digital platforms. And so a little bit about me outside of my work and job. I love plants. I have a lot of them. I am a big pasta enthusiast. I love food in general. I do a lot of cooking. I actually made some Thai basil fried rice for dinner. I've been recently getting really into 35mm film photography, and fun fact, I used to do senior portraits at Rice, so just fun times. I'm originally from Bangkok, Thailand. My parents are Chinese immigrants. And so today I'll be talking about my journey into UX, my grad school experience, and how I eventually landed my full-time job offer at SoFi in San Francisco. Great. So my journey started in architecture. I've always, as far as I can remember, I wanted to do architecture for my entire life. I think the main reason why I kind of ended up settling on this for college was because I really loved art and design. My medium of choice is acrylic paint, which is kind of basic, but we love that. And then I also wanted to go into a field that kind of allowed for a little more problem solving on the kind of more logical side of thinking. So architecture seemed like the perfect marriage of those two. So I made it all the way through junior year without, feeling or thinking too much about whether or not I really liked my life decision. So junior year, over the summer, I interned at a corporate architecture firm. And to pretty much no one's surprise, I kind of hated it because I felt like I was just this cog in this huge machine. I was really bored a lot of the time because I think there wasn't as much organization around my internship. So I wasn't really doing as much impactful work as I'd wanted to. And then above all, I think I realized how I guess non-user friendly and user-centric architecture can be. And that was kind of my main issue with the field as a whole. And so full transparency, another big reason was the pay. It was ridiculously low, and just thinking about what I wanted to do after school and coming out of college, I really felt like that would be a problem moving forward. So kind of a lot of combination of things led to me realizing that, I wasn't as passionate about architecture as I maybe thought that I was. And I think maybe this is something I realized, probably sophomore year or something, but I decided to just keep going and maybe I would love it more once I started working. And so obviously that didn't pan out. So my main issue, as I was saying before, was the kind of user centrism that didn't really exist in the field. And so you guys know, maybe a little bit about UX, but we always do user research before we start any project. You talk to people, you understand their needs. During my entire 4 years at Rice, I was never ever told to talk to someone who would be occupying the building that I'm designing, or even really understand what people need. We were kind of prescribed with these you need to include this room, this room, this room, this kind of function, this space. But there wasn't really any sort of hey, go talk to some people and find out what they want. And so I kind of realized that in all my projects, there was kind of a common theme where I was more passionate about designing the kind of experience for the person who was walking through the space or experiencing it rather than, the actual physical space itself. So I was in a bit of a rut. Might have been a bit driven also by the fact that my boyfriend, who I'm still with right now, he was kind of why are you complaining so much about this field that you're supposed to be so passionate about? And I was like, oh man. And so I talked to a few friends who are in tech, and they were all kind of maybe you should check out UX design. That seems like something that you might enjoy, and you'd make more money. It's very user-centric. And I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, there goes my existential crisis going into senior year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the architecture program at Rice, but it's essentially a 6-year program. So you have 2 years after you graduate with your bachelor's of art. And so I was kind of faced with this decision as to whether I should stay for 2 more years or like leave without the actual architecture degree and just with a BA. So I ultimately decided that I didn't want to stay for another 2 years because I knew I'd hate my life. And so I still needed a way to kind of stay in the US and pursue this new career. Because I'm an international student, there were additional restrictions put on me. So I kind of went towards grad school as my next step because that was the step that made the most sense for me. So I chose to do a degree in information science because I wanted to focus more on the kind of theoretical side and like understanding users and user research, since I already had the design foundation and a lot of the skills I learned in architecture school. So just to preface a little bit about my grad school experience, I learned a lot in my first year, and I think the most useful thing about grad school for me was having professors who would be able to like critique my work, look at it, give me feedback, let me know, if what I was doing was right or wrong, and just kind of help me better understand the field as a whole. I think one of the most useful things I learned in school and had the opportunity to do was kind of work in group projects and also do user research, which was something I'd never done before. So learning that process and understanding the kind of like terms and like buzzwords, if you will, that they use in UX and are kind of like industry standard, that was probably the most valuable part of a grad school degree for me. But by no means were any of the things that I learned in school things you can't learn without a degree. So I would say that it's definitely not necessary for a UX career. It was just the path I took because, as I said, with my international student restrictions, and it gave me a little more time to kind of settle into the career. So during my first month, I had a professor who now I'm very close to. He is very, I guess, straightforward and blunt. And he kind of straight up told me, and he was like, you're going to have a really hard time finding a job full time since you're international. You're going to have to like hit the ground running, start right now. So that led to my second mini crisis. At the beginning of my grad school career, I was like, oh crap, like I really need to get my stuff together. So that kind of spurred me to, really work on my portfolio, redo my resume and network so much. I like talked to a ton of people, and just like my entire first semester, I was like working my butt off trying to find an internship. So the networking part was probably the most rewarding experience. Fixing up your portfolio, that's just something that you kind of have to do, and it's like not always fun, but it leads to something that looks really good. But it was really what really helped me was kind of meeting a lot of design mentors who, some of them we just talked about their experiences, and I just really like listened to what they have to say about the field. And I still stay in touch with a lot of them today, and some of them even help to refer me in companies. But I think, that's a really valuable experience to have, to be able to talk to someone in the field and really understand like what they like, what they dislike, and kind of the ins and outs of their job. So I applied to like 50 plus companies, and eventually started hearing back from places in January. So I was actually like the first place that I heard back from, and I actually had no idea where it was, what they did. So right before my interview, I was kind of like frantically Googling and like trying to decide what to say. And the weird part was, I guess that was the one of the few companies I hadn't really like networked with. So I actually like got an interview through the paper traditional application route, which is not super common, I would say. So after I think 3 rounds of interviews, I ended up getting the summer internship, and I'm really thankful that at the end of the day, like COVID didn't change that, even though there was a little while where I was kind of nervous. I was like, oh man, like a lot of my friends' internships are getting canceled. Like, who knows what will happen to me, but yeah, so I had a fully remote internship over the summer. And I think, in my opinion, it was kind of like for me personally. It was big enough that, it's good to have on your resume, and people in tech like know it, but it was small enough. I think it's like 1,400 employees or something like that, that I could actually make an impact as an intern. So I wasn't just designing like a button for 10 weeks. So yeah, after a whirlwind last few weeks there and a lot of uncertainty as to whether the return offer would come through, I ended up getting it and I accepted the full-time offer. So now I'm finishing up my master's degree at UT. So I'll go through and kind of talk about a few projects that I worked on in school, and then kind of go through my summer internship experience and the work that I did while I was at SoFi. So this is Platino. It was a part of my rapid prototyping class. And essentially what we were doing here was creating a progress tracking app for at-risk or diabetic patients. So we partnered with a research lab in Dell Medical School to understand user needs. And essentially the goal here was to create a simple interface that was usable and easily learnable by target users, which were kind of like underserved population who might not have as like high of a technological literacy rate as other people who typically use apps. So the goal here for me, I wanted to help users to really understand their bodies and how the diet that they have can impact their health. So kind of helping them to really like keep track of this information, provide insights that were intelligent and like communicated with them exactly what was wrong and where they were going right. To help them kind of eventually form longer term habits so they don't need to use the app after like a year or two. So this was another project that I worked on in my second semester. It was actually a design challenge from Google that you have to do when you apply to the internship. And so this challenge got me through to the second round, which was team matching. Google is like kind of crazy with their interview process, but I unfortunately wasn't able to finish the process because COVID hit and they kind of like cut everyone in the pipeline at that moment. So this app was designed to help streamline the maintenance request system. I kind of use Rice as an example here. I don't know if you see like Will Rice College on there or something. But essentially it was made during a 7-day sprint. I was able to conduct user research with 5 people on Rice campus back in the days before COVID, do some ideation, and then created medium and high fidelity mockups. And so it was kind of like this crazy 7 days where I was like frenzied and just like trying to finish this all off while also trying to like juggle schoolwork and stuff. It was funny because at one point, like I think a few weeks after I did it, there were like 10 people from my class all doing it at the same time. And everyone was like a nervous wreck, but yeah. So for my project here, I created multiple interfaces because when I was interviewing people, I realized that there were not only, you know, the users wouldn't just be the students, but it would also be H&D workers and also supervisors who are the people who like assign work orders to the maintenance team, which I didn't even know was a thing. I thought like priority was assigned by the workers or something, but this makes a lot more sense. So the idea for Reparo is to facilitate communication between students and workers so they can kind of stay updated on their order status. Oh, sorry, not order, work order status, and understand like exactly what the steps are before their issue gets fixed. Because this was kind of the main pain point that I found when I was interviewing students, that like there was very little transparency and like they had no idea when their issue was going to get fixed. And it was just a very frustrating process as a whole. Another feature I wanted to include was to allow students to like easily report issues around campus while going between their classes. So this needed to be a really quick, like location-based, just like tap and go, because like, you know, college students, we are all busy and we're not really like trying to spend 10 minutes typing out exactly what's wrong with everything. So I tried to like kind of base it off of the Google Maps interface. I don't know if you guys use it, but now you can kind of flag where there's construction or when there's like a police officer waiting to like ticket people on Google Maps so that future users, when they come by, they'll be able to see the alert. So I kind of modeled it around that, where it was just like kind of 2 taps and then a save, and then you're on your way. And then another part of the app was to help workers kind of track their work and prioritize their day. The H&D workers that I interviewed were kind of like overwhelmed and had a hard time kind of like figuring out what to prioritize. So that was a big thing that I wanted to push forward and like increase the clarity of with this app. And then finally, the supervisors wanted to enable them to get this more holistic view of their team's progress and also easily assign priorities to different tasks and different workers in their team, depending on their schedules. So now I'll move on to talking more about my internship experience and kind of what it's like to work in a fintech company. So SoFi's goal is to ultimately make finance more accessible to everyone in the world, hence the name social finance. Its business has a lot of arms. So they started off by doing student loans, and it has since expanded to include like a credit card, wealth tracking, and also investing products. And that's what I worked on this summer. So it was essentially like the Robin Hood of SoFi. So SoFi, fun fact, is a unicorn startup, which is a private company that's valued over $1 billion. And I worked on an intern project with the research and product management interns. And the three of us kind of had full control and autonomy of the project from scoping it all the way to launch. They kind of gave us a brief that was, hey, you're working on this specific page, and then kind of like led us to the wolves. And we were just trying to figure out what we wanted to do. So it was fully remote. I had one design supervisor and then one buddy who was another designer on my team. And I worked in a pod with 5 other designers under one manager. Just a little bit of like background. I think SoFi has 30 total designers on the design team, and I was the only design intern that they had. So it was an amazing team. I really enjoyed like all the designers in my pod. I had a really fun time with my direct report supervisor. We were both Asian immigrant women, and so we really, really vibed. And she really helped to advocate for me throughout my internship and really pushed me and was an amazing mentor. So the designs I created ended up getting rolled out in my last week there. And they're still kind of rolling out these changes now as the app gets to continually develop. And yeah, it is impacting 250K users, which is pretty mind-blowing to me because I haven't ever made anything that has touched a user before. So I'm really excited to see this like roll out and be built. Don't look at the app right now, it is not fully done. Cool. And so this was the kind of before shot. So our project was to work on the tear sheet, which is the page that you look at individual stocks on and kind of make decisions about it based on their performance and whether or not you want to buy it. So the main issue that we found during our research and kind of like based on what our product partners told us was that people didn't really have enough information on this page to make their decisions to execute. And so there's a drop of users right at this page. According to the metrics, people were leaving to go do research elsewhere and just like as a whole, kind of not really, it wasn't really retaining users. So this before view, as you can see, it's like decently nice on the surface, but had quite a few usability issues and wasn't the best in terms of visual design. So after research and doing a lot of product scoping, we decided the first step we wanted to take was to work on the layout of this area, which is like above the fold, which is like everything you see when you first open the app without scrolling. As you can see, there's like really little info in the mobile view. You like can only see like pretty much the graph line and then a little bit of a description. And in web, it's just like totally messy and there's a ton of wasted white space. So this is the after shot. I tried to kind of bring as much information above the fold as possible. So on mobile, including the numbers like 52-week high and low. These numbers I chose specifically because according to a product usage survey, a lot of our users, well, like I think it was above 70% of users found these to be the most useful in making their decisions to buy. And so the most kind of like key point I wanted to bring forward here was to kind of put these numbers next to the graph so you could see them in the context of each other. Because sometimes you kind of like start with the graph, you go down to your details where you see like, you know, the performance in numbers, and you kind of just like forget about the graph. So I tried to adopt this in the web view as well. So as you can see, all the details are shown right next to the graph. You can pretty much just like make that connection instantly without having to scroll back and forth. Another part of my internship that was like pretty big was working on the restructuring of the information architecture of the rest of this page. Um, and kind of the order in which the key information like news, investor activity, Twitter feeds were shown and ordered to help encourage users to make more long-term decisions about their investments. So an example of this, I don't have it here. It's kind of hard to show like the rest of the page, but essentially the way it was ordered before kind of showed the more social aspect of the interactions nearer to the top of the screen. And so what I was trying to do was de-incentivize users like looking at other people's trades and making their decisions based on like what other people were doing. So I tried to lower this down in the information hierarchy and instead surface things like the news and kind of the different like industries that stock are in. Oh, and another fun fact. So I also designed this like crypto screen. Before there was a whole like color scheme for crypto. You're legally required to have a different color scheme so that users can differentiate between what's crypto and what's a normal stock. And they didn't have a green before, so I came up with this green color and we named it Crypto Mint, but all the designers were calling it Metinee, so that was nice. Yeah, so this was kind of the last thing that I got to work on, the details module. So the left is the before view. The biggest problem here was like no one knew you could swipe left to right to see the like rest of the details. So that was a huge problem. Like there were literally page metrics that showed like a huge drop off and people weren't like looking at the next screen. So you're missing a lot of really important information like PE ratio and like market cap. And so in the after screen, honestly, is a very simple fix, but this went through like 10 iterations or something where all the details are in one row. And I introduced this idea of showing the definitions, something that like none of our other competitors do right now. But essentially the goal of that was to kind of help our main user group, which is novice investors, to like learn and understand finance terms better as they're using the app. Our research showed that a lot of users don't really understand basic finance terms. And the idea kind of came about when like we were discussing as designers and we found out like, I think we were trying to figure out the meaning of like market cap or something and none of us knew what it meant. And we were like, wow, this is like a serious issue. If people who work at this company and like are educated don't even know what this means, like what are other people doing, Yeah, so I had a really, really great experience at SoFi. I think my favorite part, because it was remote, was kind of like the design crits. It was one of the more social and like fun interactions that I got to have with the rest of my team. And I was able to present a lot of my ideas, really like talk through them. And in a lot of cases, like actually like kind of defend my logic and my thinking behind my ideas, which was truly, truly beneficial. And I've never had to really do that before. I think like in studio, whenever I did this with architecture, it was kind of like, okay, teacher gives you feedback, taking it, all right, bye. Yeah, so that was an awesome, awesome experience. Another really key like learning point from SoFi was that I got to interface with engineers, product managers, and researchers. And I'd never worked with PMs or engineers. And actually, no, I'd worked with engineers. I hadn't worked with PMs, and that was definitely a tough relationship to navigate. I also learned about metrics and how to kind of get key stakeholder buy-in by using metrics, numbers, and kind of like really backing up my decisions with user data. And at the end of the internship, the kind of like exciting part was that I got to present all of my work to 2 executive members, so direct reports to the CEO. And they were really, really impressed by like me and the 2 other interns who were on my team's presentation. And I think that's actually what eventually landed up the return offer. I was told by HR in confidence at the end. So very, very exciting to be able to get that kind of FaceTime. Oh, and like one more fun tidbit. Our CEO actually made time to like have weekly sessions with the interns and kind of answer any questions that we had. And that was, I think, a very unique experience to a company the size of where SoFi is at right now, because I don't really think that any other of the big companies would ever be able to do that. So that was incredibly rewarding, and he's a very cool guy. Great. So I learned a lot during my very, very long UX journey. And like all good design presentations, I kind of like to wrap up with my key learnings and takeaways. So the main really, really important thing I think I learned over the course of the past few years was that we really want to care about users. This was something that was drilled into me both in school repeatedly and at my internship. My supervisor was always kind of challenging me to back up my decisions with user research. And she was always asking me like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like a lot of the times I think designers will make instinctual decisions, and like there is that kind of user thinking behind it, but you really have to like talk about it and explain your rationale, or else people never know what you're really thinking about and how much, I guess, user insight is backing that design decision. As UXers, I think our most important role is to be the advocate for the user in every company. And I think that's why we matter so much, and why, you know, UX designers are paid more than any other type of designer in the world, because I think tech companies realize how important we are in helping them understand what their consumer base needs and how to like ultimately help them make money. Networking is so crazy important. I think that as undergrads, it's definitely very daunting. And in architecture school, I wasn't really encouraged to network at all. So this was definitely a very, very new experience for me. Really trying to like get out there and talk to as many people as I can and learn as much as I can about such a new field that I was in. And it was honestly so rewarding. And I have made a lot of great friends along the way. And finally, kind of just being detail oriented. I've always kind of been obsessive over small details to a point where it would kind of like slow me down when I was in architecture. So it's definitely something that I've learned to like manage a lot better now with my kind of design process, with like low fidelity wireframes and sketching. But this is something that, you know, I've been told by both my manager that I worked with this summer and also other designers who kind of like looked at my work. That is something that sets me apart. And that's just something I wanted to pass along, because if you've ever met like a designer at a company, like the eye for detail is crazy. Like I think I remember talking to like the VP of design over the summer, and he was like, yep, I can tell when that's one pixel off and I will tell this person. And it's just that kind of like exactness when you've been in the field for so long, like nothing will slip by someone. So yeah, that's my kind of key takeaways of my journey so far. So thank you guys so much for listening today. I really enjoyed presenting my journey and my story. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them.
I guess I can start it off.
For sure.
So coming from a more like comp side of things, how is your interaction with like front-end developers and stuff, if you had any?
Yeah, so I worked with front-end developers a lot during my last few weeks when when they were focusing on kind of rolling out the features that I designed. And I think it's a lot of back and forth, kind of like the engineer like showing me their work, and then for me kind of providing a sort of quality assurance and being like, hey, this is like a few pixels off, like this should not be like this. And so that was the kind of interaction we had. And I think the main thing I learned from that was that engineers like really, really do think differently from designers. And so I think it's really helpful for both sides to kind of understand the other a little more, because it's such a crazy different world that they're in. And I was just like blown away by their skill, but also there were definitely like communication difficulties, and I felt very uncomfortable being like an intern and being like, hey, this is wrong, like go change this. So yeah, definitely a very fine line and like specific relationship to like manage well, I think, because when that relationship is well developed, then it benefits like the entire company. So yeah, super, super great like question for you to ask, actually.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I've heard like at different companies, like sometimes the UI UX and like designers are like centralized like on one team, and sometimes they're like scattered among different teams. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Do you have any more advice, I guess, for people who are trying to find UX design internships for the summer?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I would say is like don't really discriminate between where you're applying for, because I actually think that even if you're at a company that's like smaller or that people don't know as well, as long as you have created a sort of, if you have an impact on the company and you're able to like create something tangible, you can speak to that experience during future interviews, during like in your resume, your portfolio will reflect that. And I think that's a lot more important than having like, say, a big name. Because at the end of the day, like I think you learn the most on the job. Like UX is such a hands-on profession. I feel like you can read as many books as you want. You can like get your degrees or whatever, but at the end of the day, like there's no replacement for actually working with engineers, with PMs. And I think that like understanding how to communicate with your partners is what makes you a good designer as well.
Thank you. Also, I was wondering for SoFi, do y'all have specific UX researchers, or do you guys do like the end-to-end like UX design process?
Yeah, we do have researchers in-house. They are definitely, there's like fewer of them than I would have liked personally. So I actually helped out a lot with the research portion as well. So I worked really closely with the research intern. I helped her like proof her like interview scripts. I actually ran a few user tests on my own. So yeah, it was definitely like, yeah, they do have their own separate department. And they really do a lot of good work because I was able to like, it's honestly so nice to not have to do that by yourself as a designer because you have already so much on your plate. But yeah, I think it's nice to be involved in that process too, because you learn a lot from the insights and it's nicer to like actually hear users speaking hands-on when you're sitting in on the interview than like, you know, just kind of reading through a researcher's like slides or notes afterwards. Mm-hmm.
I know for CS, like there's a very specific way that you want to showcase your skills on your resume, like internships are really important, maybe personal projects. Can you describe like what are the main points you should focus on in a resume for people that want to pursue UI UX?
Yeah, I think the experience part is definitely the most important thing that people look for. But if you don't have the experience, then including like projects that you've worked on, whether that's like personal or with like organizations, is really great to have as well. That's kind of how I would recommend filling up your resume instead of having like, you know, like 7 positions, 4 or 3 of which are like not really design related. Because I think it's more important to have like those actual relatable experiences and then like a few projects that highlight, you know, your ability to design. And then like definitely the visual part is something that you want to focus on and take some time to figure out what your personal style is, and like, you know, typography, color, get that looking like really polished because your resume is supposed to be sort of like an extension of your portfolio, and really reflect your values and kind of design aptitude as a UX designer. Yeah.
That's so cool. Like I never thought that like I would, or like as a UI UX student, I guess you would have to like
Yeah.
personalize your resume with like colors and different typographies. As a
Yeah.
CS student, you definitely just Times New Roman down the line.
Yeah. No, it's funny how like different it is because I think I was working on my resume last night actually, and my boyfriend was like, it's crazy that you put so much time into making your resume pretty. Like if I had done that, like people would just be like, what is this person doing? But yeah, it's just so different in a design field. So yeah, definitely personalize that.
Yeah, I tried to do like a 2-column resume, and they were like, application like software won't be able to recognize 2 columns. You have to do 1 column. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is for at least UX, because I think so many people have dual column resumes. So who knows, maybe I'm skirting the system, and maybe that's why I only heard back from a few places. So yeah.
If people don't have like any specific questions, I think it'd be fun for us to just like go around and introduce ourselves, since we have such a small group, and like get to know each other.
Yeah, that sounds great. And like if anyone comes up with questions like afterwards, definitely feel free to email me or something. I'm happy to provide like contact information.
Does anyone want to start off?
I can start. Okay. Well, hello everyone. I am Cindy. I guess for introductions we can do. So I'm currently a sophomore at McMurtry, and I'm studying cognitive sciences. And then minoring in business. So I'm pretty set on doing UI UX as a career. I think it's really awesome. Thank you so much for talking today. I really enjoyed this presentation. It was super helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know. What else should we do for intros?
Maybe since like we have a few areas that like we focus on for events and rice design, maybe they can describe like what area they're interested in.
Okay, cool. So as I said, UI UX. Yeah.
Okay, I can go. I'm Sarah. I'm a sophomore. Yeah, I'm a sophomore at Martell. I'm a computer science major, minoring in statistics. I thought I wanted to do UI UX for like a solid month, and I was like, should I be getting a cog sci like double major? But yeah, I think what I really like coding, so I'm considering front end development pretty heavily. Yeah, that and product management.
Awesome.
But I think I want to do a few years of just like software engineering before I go into any.
Makes sense. Cool. Yeah. Oh, someone said
Thank
they're
you,
having dinner.
I can go?
Sorry, go ahead.
If no one else. All right. So my name's Ray, and I'm currently in my 6th year of architecture studies. And I was originally from Martell. And I was actually Metinee's classmate, and we've been through like 4 years of hell together. And while she left to do UX UI after 4 years, I stuck around to finish my architecture degree. And I'm just here to see what she's up to right now and know whether like, we've actually made the right choice or yeah.
Yeah. What is your conclusion?
I don't know yet. I'm just gonna stick it out, get my full degree, and see.
Nice. Great.
I think someone else was talking before. Oh yeah.
Hi, so I'm Eileen. I'm currently a junior architecture student, and I'm originally from China, and I'm also from SIT. So I just recently developed like an interesting UI UX design. So I haven't like learned a lot about it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Feel free to like message me if you have questions specifically on the international student side of things, because yeah, there are some restrictions.
yes, some.
Yeah.
I guess I'm last. My name is Metinee. I'm a sophomore, but I'm taking a gap year right now, and I'm at Will Rice. And and I'm really interested in UI UX. I really love front end development, just because like I get to see like my work show up on the screen.
Yeah.
I kind of really hate back end, but that's another story. But yeah, I just want to know like, what made you like make the jump to UI UX? Like, what gave you that confidence boost? Because I know you had like that midlife crisis or quarter life crisis or whatever. Yeah.
Totally. I think it was a mix of like, I'm graduating, I'm about to like go out into the real world. I need to make some real decisions because if I don't, then I'm kind of gonna be stuck doing something I don't like at all for 2 years. And like once I hit the realization that I didn't like it anymore, I feel like for me, like psychologically, I couldn't force myself to do it anymore. Like if I tried to stay in architecture, I'd probably like go crazy or something. So that was, you know, like time was kind of a limiting factor. And then I think I had a lot of support from like really important people in my life. So my boyfriend was super supportive. He like was kind of there with me the whole way. Like all of my friends have been super, super great. I was so scared as to what like my friends in architecture would think. I thought they were gonna all like judge me for leaving. But they're all like, yeah, good for you. Like you go do what you like. And I think actually one of the biggest things was having like a real adult like support my decision. So I actually like told our career counselor at the architecture school about it, and she was so supportive and so awesome. So I think, yeah, it was just like a lot of people really like pushing me and supporting me in my decision. And also like me being the kind of person I am, like I can't do something that I know that I hate for like, you know, 2 years of my life and know that I wasted those 2 years. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like the most indecisive person I know usually. Like I can't make any decisions by myself. I'm always like, someone needs to help me with this. Yeah. Oh, Comp 182. That's so funny. Yeah, but it was really nice to meet all of you. And I hope you guys like find what you love and eventually like get to that point. But yeah, I'm glad that this is, you know, starting, I guess, in Rice. I feel like Rice has always been kind of behind on like the design front. So yeah, grateful for this.
Yeah,
Props
I
to
totally agree.
Cindy.
No, it was like it's everyone. Like I I can't do this without you guys. But yeah, I definitely agree on that because I got interested over the summer and then I went to Rice to look for resources and then Rice was like, we have none. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's very real.
Mhm.
I guess in the spirit of like transparency on finance, I'm like happy to talk about, you know, like pay. I know that's a sensitive subject, but like everyone always wants to know. So like if you have questions about that, like feel free to reach out to me. I can probably give you a pretty good idea of what you would be making like out of undergrad. And then for me, because I have the graduate degree and because I like worked at the company, so they know my abilities, I'm like a level up from entry level. So I can kind of give you a ballpark for that as well. But yep, tech companies are really generous, and I apparently have pet insurance next year. So yeah, I was told
I didn't know that was a
that's a
thing.
part of my benefits package, but paying off a cell phone or giving me a new cell phone isn't. So I was kind of sad about that, but it's okay. I have pet insurance.
You have pets?
I'm probably going to adopt a cat when I get to San Francisco, but right now I'm fostering. So I'm fostering a cat who kind of has like mobility issues right now. So she's on like all sorts of meds. So I was like, insurance would be very handy for that, but I don't have to pay right now because it's a foster. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
On the note of like pay, but not really, I guess just more personal career growth. How easy is it to move up in UI UX?
Yeah, I think that so there's like a few ways you can move up, I guess. So the first way is like as an individual contributor. So kind of moving up the like career ladder itself. So kind of going from like a level 1 to level 2, like all the way up to like, I think it goes up to like level 6 or something. And I think the official like, the titles like kind of change depending on companies, but that's generally what you see. A like senior staff designer is like someone who's very, very senior, but like still an individual contributor who's like still like designing as their focus. And then you can also move into like management. So managing other designers and becoming like a design lead. And I think eventually that leads into like a VP of design and then maybe like a chief design officer if that's a role. And then you can also pivot into product management, which I think isn't super common yet, but I think in the next few years it will be because designs like incentives and goals like really, really align with what PM wants to do. So I think it's a very natural progression. But yeah, that's kind of like the three main ways that you can move through the hierarchy. And like, I personally think I will probably be going more like the manager route because I don't know if I'm suited for PM, but that's also an option that I'm keeping open. But definitely want to design for like at least 5 years first.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have any last minute questions?
I actually have another one.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
But I'm just wondering, like, if you have any suggestions on how to like stand out as an applicant. I know that's a very vague question, but any advice would help.
So if there's a company you really want to work with, I would suggest talking to a few people there. Just like A, so you can get an idea of what's going on, but also B, so you like eventually if they get to that kind of point of asking internally, like, or after interviews, you know, someone will be able to vouch for you. So that's really important. I think having projects where you can either A, deliver impact, and you can kind of quote numbers at like what the changes are and the kind of success metrics that you're able to tick off is really helpful. And so I think the way you get that is kind of working like more hands-on with like either, you know, during the school year, if you can't find like a co-op, then like working with like nonprofit organizations or like, you know, other student run businesses on campus, you know, because like, for example, like Coffee House, I'm sure they have like metrics as to how many people like place orders through their app or whatever. And then this kind of second part, I think would also be like, if you're not able to kind of do that, then have projects where you're able to conduct like usability tests. So a lot of people kind of get through the initial user research, the prototyping, high fidelity, whatever, but stop there. And I think it's super valuable to show that you've had the time and taken that like extra step to conduct research after and like validate that what you're doing works or doesn't work, and then kind of taking steps to iterate on that. Yeah, so those would be, and like kind of like talking and testing with obviously like real people, not like making it up or anything. So yeah, I think those are two like big things that would help a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually had a question too.
Yeah.
What resources would you like recommend like newcomers to the UI UX scene? Like where would you guide them to?
Use resources like what, like on Rice campus or like,
or just like online, you know, like YouTube or like Coursera.
oh, I see. Do you mean more like tutorials on how to use software or like understanding the field better, I guess?
That's like understanding the field better, getting a better like feel of what it's like in the industry. Like
for sure. Yeah, so I think there's a few books. I can send an email to either Sarah or Cindy after this, and like you guys can post them in Discord or something. There's the like classic one, which is like the Design of Everyday Things. That is like the basic UX book that like every designer has read. And it kind of is like that intro to understanding UX design. Yeah, that one. Good job, Cindy. I think UX like Medium is actually super, super helpful. And so there's specific Medium blogs that are like UX related. So I think like UX Planet, and then there's like prototyper maybe. But I think a lot of people like write about their experiences, and also like you can look through people's case studies, which I think is really interesting to like understand what is like while you're forming your design process, like how to kind of navigate that and like what others have done, and what you like, what you don't like. So for example, like something that I think a lot of people do is like make personas. And I think that is like a complete waste of your time, because it's like pretty and like interesting, and like, but I think people definitely go overboard being like, this person is like an extrovert, like INFJ, whatever, like prefers to go to like Louis Vuitton over this. And I'm like, you don't need to know all this information to design something. And none of your users' bases will be that exact, you know? So kind of like figuring out your process, that's really helpful. And then trying to think what else. I think like a lot of like design teams at companies have really good like blogs and just like yeah, blogs where they talk about like what they do and how their design teams are run. So I think Figma has a really good one. Google, as usual, is very good. I think Lyft has pretty good documentation too, and they have a very robust design team. So yeah, those are 3 that I would check out. And if I come up, think of any other ones, I'll also let you know. But yeah, they have very good documentation. And I think there's a lot of like free talks that you can go to. I think Dropbox hosts them. I'll find that link and send that to you guys. But yeah, so if you can go to talks where you can hear like people from UX disciplines like speak about, you know, their experience or like something that they're working on, that's really exciting. Yeah, I think there's like probably some sort of like meetup group for that in Houston. Not entirely sure about that. But yeah.
Okay, bet. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Oh no, it's okay. Figma's like kind of getting big shot now, so. Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Thank
So
you guys
I
for
guess we can
having
wrap
me.
up the event. Yeah, thank you so much for speaking. The presentation was super cool. Like, even though I don't think I want to do UI UX, I think I still learned a lot. Very
That's
similar
awesome.
to comp in a lot of ways, but
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think it's super helpful that you're learning about UX as well if you want to go into PM, because that's a huge part of it. So yay.
Yeah. I like really relate
you,
to the thing you said about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, I wasn't saying anything.
I was just gonna say I related to your thing about like a user-centered approach. I think that's really important to remember in comp as well. But yeah,
for sure.
thank you everyone for coming out, and thank you again to Metinee for hosting this event. Yeah, I will reach out to you after the event. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me or Cindy or any of the officers for contact info. But yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you guys. Good luck with school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.